September is a lovely month in the garden. The summer heat has abated, the rains have come, the ground is warm and now damp, which makes it perfect for starting plants to grow. So in September you're looking forward very much to winter, but also to spring. It's a busy time of year. Adding late summer flowering plants to your beds and borders is the secret to having a garden that's as colourful as possible for as long as possible. Here are 5 that I'm adding to my garden this year. So what is a late summer flowerer? Well, it may sound obvious really. It's any flower really which starts blooming sometime in July and will run on right the way through to September, October, and sometimes the first frosts in November. And late summer is a particularly important time. School holidays, and yes, you'll go away for a week or two, but then you come back and there's nothing much to look at in your garden unless you major on the beauties I'm about to show you now. At number 5, Crocosmia. Some of them start flowering in early July, others come later on in the summer. But choose a range of them like this one, Harlequin, which has flowers of rich, deep tangerine and a much lighter orange, hence Harlequin. It's 2 different colours. And you can make sure that your crocosmias will flower right the way through the summer. They're easy to grow, they love a warm, hot, sunny spot, they last for ages, and when they do start to get overcrowded, you can dig them up and divide them. At number 4 is this, Echinacea. Now you may associate Echinacea with medicinal properties, and it has many, but for me, it does me a power of good when I see it in my borders, particularly this one, which is called Delicious Candy. These flowers, they're almost luminous. It's a reasonable height too, without being too tall and floppy. So this one, which comes in something just under 2 feet high, absolutely delicious. The central boss in the flower here is really quite hard, and these lovely ray petals around it just set it off. And this will flower from July right the way through to September and October. You'll enjoy it hugely, even longer if the weather's mild and sunny. You can leave these until they really fade. They last a long time as individuals, but then snip them off and you'll find that lower down there are other flowers just waiting to take over. And this one isn't going to be out for weeks yet, so you can tell just how long it's going to go on. At number 3, Sedum, the ice plant. Sedums are referred to as the ice plant because if you feel their thick, fleshy, succulent leaves, they seem so much colder than the foliage of other plants around them, almost icy cold. So it's ironic that this particular variety of sedum is called hot stuff. I know it looks particularly cool at the moment, but when these flowers open, they go a really rich shade of pink. There are others that are really dark, almost dusky mauve, and some with purple leaves. The other beauty about this, apart from the fact that it's really drought tolerant and can cope with dry soil, is that once these flowers open and the nectar appears, butterflies and bees absolutely love them. So when your midsummer flowers are but a memory, here comes the sedum to give you late summer glory. These are all flowers I'm going to add to my garden, but already I have several that are real stonkers and nicely established, so they're giving me a fabulous display. The first of these is the Japanese anemone. You can get these lovely open flowers with a golden boss of stamens in the middle in pink, dark mauve or white. They're absolutely lovely. They start flowering round about July. They carry right the way on through until October, November. Then comes the Russian sage, Perovskia. These enormous spires of lavender blue start coming out in July, and they again last right the way through to the summer. Another plant that's very happy in full sun and well-drained soil, and which needs little fuss and care. Well, that's enough about me and my garden. What about you and your garden? What's coming next at number 2? Which will it be? This one. The red hot poker, or in this case, salmon pink. The red hot poker's botanical name is Kniphofia, beginning with a K. Kniphof was the man it was named after. Some of them flower early in the summer. This one is a good later bloomer, and you can see this display, which is going to last for weeks, by the youngsters coming up below. This is papaya popsicle. Look at those flowers. You can see they start opening at the bottom. These have faded, these ones right down here. Then are the ones that are open. Then are the ones that are going to open in a while. So you get several weeks worth on each individual flower, and then this whole host of blooms coming up from below. But this is always a good thing to do when you're buying a plant. Look not just at what's out now, but what's to come. You can see it grows to be about 1 metre high, and for sort of 3 or 4 feet back in your bed or border, it's an absolute corker. Before we get to number 1, 3 plants that are great late summer bloomers, which I've been forced to leave out reluctantly, but still great for your August-September border. Daisies are particularly good at this time of year, particularly this one, short and sassy, it's called, this one. A lot of heleniums are much taller, but they all have this habit of the petals falling away from the boss of stamens. Some of them yellow, but predominantly at this time of year, mahogany coloured, deep and dusky oranges. The next one is another daisy, and you can see the difference in the petal formation here. This is Rudbeckia. Starry flowers here with bright yellow petals, and then this almost black central boss in the middle there. And I've snuck in a shrub because they're so good at the end of summer, and that's this one. It's a type of hydrangea, not the normal mop head, but this is hydrangea paniculata, because its flowers are carried in what are known as panicles. That's the arrangement of these flowers. Here they're lime green in the bud, but when this opens, these are going to be white. And finally, at number 1 in my list of favourite late summer flowers, well, it has to be the dahlia. Dahlias were out of fashion for years. They were thought to be vulgar. Heaven knows who buy, because I've always loved them. They grow from a tuber, and you plant it in spring, in your beds and borders, up it comes, and flowers like this from mid-summer right the way through to the frosts of November. This particular flower form is called a decorative. I know it's decorative, but it's a decorative form of flower. The cactus dahlias have spikier petals. The pom-pom dahlias, tight bunches of little rosette flowers. As you can guess from this fleshy foliage and the fleshy succulent stems, the dahlia is a greedy plant. Don't give it poor dry earth. Give it ground that has almost got the texture of fruit cake. I love a good dahlia. It really does deserve to be number 1 in my list of favourite late summer bloomers. One of the things I get most comments about in my garden is the topiary. Topiary shrubs are wonderful focal points in the garden, and here on well-drained, chalky soil, yew is absolutely the tip-top shrub. This is 1 year's growth. A foot there, the length of that stem, that's pretty good going, I reckon, for any shrub. I clip them at the end of summer, August, September, when the majority of growth has stopped, and that way they'll stay crisp in outline right the way through the winter. Clip them earlier and they won't have stopped growing. They'll carry on, and that means you've got to clip them twice. On small topiary specimens, these topiary shears, which are like sheep shears, are very good for intricate work. But on a large specimen like this cone here, ordinary shears are absolutely fine. There's a lot of argument on where you should start to clip a topiary specimen like this. You can start at the top and work down. I prefer to do it the other way about, to start at the bottom, to watch the line of my shears with the line of the shrub. Watch me as I try and make this into a much crisper outline. We're very conscious of keeping the smooth line and of not digging in too far. You can always go in a little bit further once you've started, but you can't put a bit back that you've cut out. You'll find you have most control if you hold the shears pretty near to the top of the handle rather than on the end where they can get a bit wobbly. I find my hands are naturally almost at the top of the wood because it's much more precise there. And that's the other thing about shears. They give you a chance to be, well, to offer much more finesse in your cut than just scooting up there with a powered trimmer. I love doing this because it means your mind switches off completely from anything else, and all you're doing is concentrating on the evenness of that line. And as you come around, you'll see the bit that you've clipped, and then you can see any bits that stick out. So you're eyeing up that cut edge the whole time. Very satisfying. When you start working round the plant that way, you can turn your shears round. They've got a slight kink in them, you see, so if you're going that way, turn them that way round rather than clipping outwards. They can just bend in a bit and they'll help you with your angle. When I started training this into a topiary specimen, it was just a normal bush of yew, nothing dramatic about its shape at all. But then I let the centre come up and started trimming the sides in. No great science to it, you just know what you've got in mind for the end, and it will fatten over the years, but you can still keep the line going. And this is where I need to take my time and go right the way around it up here and make sure I get that final angle right. And that's all there is to it. Grow well, little tree. The joy of topiary is it can be anything and everything. Even in dead of winter, when it's covered in snow or frost, it'll be there, like a sentinel, giving the garden shape and form right the way through the year. This one always makes people smile. I didn't really know what it was going to be. I just grew it as a bush and started clipping it, and then two bits came up at the sides. So I thought, oh well, I'll tie them in at the top. So I did, and then it kept on growing, and I trimmed it into this shape. It's become a piece of garden sculpture, and I can honestly, confidently say Nobody else has got one of these. You could say nobody else would want one, but I like it. I have a lot of topiary, cones and balls and obelisks and pyramids. And this is how they all begin their life. I've trimmed these bottoms into slight cones. In this case, because I want to take a single stem up, I've put a steel stake in and gently taped this central shoot in. And all I have to keep doing now is trimming these lower shoots, being very careful at this stage not to cut off the vital shoot. But I do want all these low ones reduced. So that will do for now. Having trimmed those lower shoots, it can concentrate on growing this one into, well, I don't know yet. And that's the joy with it. You can sort of see what you feel like. Peacock, elephant, steam train, no, maybe just a small bird. So this one's been going a few years. Let me show you what you need to do to start from scratch. It might seem like a long journey from this to an elaborate cone, but it'll grow faster than you think. This is going to cost you around about 40 or 50 pounds, but it's going to turn into something glorious thanks to your efforts. So what you're trying to do is just gradually reduce it upwards. Start with secateurs, snipping off one or two of these lower branches. Wider it always is at the bottom. You are going to just reduce it and slightly narrow it at the top. And you can buy them like this in the garden centre. They'll vary in price. If you're doing hedging, get them younger. They're much less expensive. If you have no money to spare at all, but quite a lot of patience, you can grow it from cuttings. The great thing about it here is you can look down on it and see what you're doing from a lofty height and turn it round. It's a simple job really, just to make it longer at the top, shorter at the bottom, and not be frightened to take a few of these thicker ones really off. Every time you make a cut, you'll be encouraging growth to sprout from that cut come next spring. And one vital piece of information, which seems obvious but we've all fallen foul of it: always make sure that the hand which isn't holding the secateurs knows exactly where that blade is when you're doing this. Otherwise, I've had a few cuts in my time and they're very sharp. And it's now beginning to look like something which is going to grow upwards rather than outwards. And that, in those early stages and early years of growth, is what you're encouraging. Ornamental grasses are really useful in beds and borders, for swathes between more dramatic plants. They're drought tolerant, easy to look after, and they also sway in the breeze. Let me show you 5 of my favourites. So here they all are, showing off the infinite variety of the world of grasses. At number 5, a real old favourite, this blue fescue grass. This is Festuca Intense Blue, a particularly strong blue-grey of the fescue grass. Doesn't grow very tall, you can see how high it is, not much, stays well under a foot. A really good border edger, or for the odd blob at the front of a bed or border. Looks good particularly with garden pinks and soft pastel colours that complement these blue-grey needles of growth. Like most grasses, it needs good, well-drained soil, and then it'll do well and last for years. When it does start to peter out a bit, dig it up, divide it into bits in spring and replant it. And then you can keep having this great hairdo of blue-grey leaves. At number 4, oh, another popular favourite that I had to go with, the ponytail grass. It really does look like a ponytail grass, but please, don't do like the lionesses and put it into a ponytail, will you? Leave it to flop loosely. It wanders around beautifully and it seeds itself around. You'll find it popping up among other plants in a bed or border. This is one that can cope with a foot or two further back in the border, if you like, because it grows about 45 centimetres, 18 inches high, but a plant of superb delicacy that's a really good foil to other bolder-leaved plants. And in the evening light, when the sun is fairly low, it positively shimmers. At number 3, not so much a grass, more a sedge. This is Carex. This Carex Eversheen is one of the sedges. Sedges are like grasses, but they have that much more of a coarser leaf, really quite tough. You can pull them up by the leaves. Oh, straight out of its pot. There you are. Really strong grower. And this particular one is called Eversheen. Look closely at those leaves and you'll see they have a central stripe of creamy yellow bordered with bright green. Quite a low grower, not much more than a foot tall, but it makes this glorious fountain of leaves. It's really useful because it's evergreen. It lasts like this right the way through the winter. It's hardy, and in summer it'll show off the brighter flowers that surround it. Before I get to number 2, let me show you one or two of my favourite grass and flower combinations. First up is this beauty here. This is Imperata, called Red Baron. The leaves here are amazing. They're flushed with crimson at the tips, and they look particularly good when planted alongside this, the chocolate flowered cosmos. You see how well the crimson leaves of the Imperata work with this chocolate cosmos. Glorious. And when you sniff the cosmos, not only does it look chocolate coloured, it smells of chocolate too, and it's not remotely fattening. Next combination, well, it's another one which is very colourful. This is the pheasant tail grass. This is another one that seeds itself about, tough as old boots, it'll grow anywhere, and it looks fab at this time of year with Rudbeckia. These bright flowers of yellow with a dark central boss in the middle of them. And the combination of the two here, when the lovely pheasant tail grass starts to colour up this kind of amber coloration as the summer goes on. So it starts to be very sympathetic and very good with this Rudbeckia. Both of them late in the season, bringing you a colour combination when many other flowers have done their bit. Just one more? Well, I can't resist this. A bright red geum. This is Firestarter, and it works wonderfully with a pennisetum called Summer Samba. Pennisetums have some of the best grass flowers on them, really fluffy. And this particular one with its dark purple leaves, I think looks fab with this bright red geum Firestarter. I love that combination. The wonderful thing about all these combinations is you can do them on a larger or a smaller scale. You can just have one plant of each for what you might call a sort of pop in your border. Oh, look at that one. Or you could do a drift of the bright red geum and then a drift of the plum purple grass. Brilliant. But back to my list, at number 2 in my top 5 is a taller grass. This is Miscanthus. And this one's called Little Zebra. It's called zebra grass because if you look at the leaves, you'll see they're striped laterally, and particularly with the sun coming through them, the zebra grass or zebra grass is an absolute cracker. This is a shorter one. It grows only about 1 metre high. The true zebra grass is taller still than that, but a great background plant in the border, middle or back, and in a small garden, it makes a wonderful backdrop to brighter flowers. It's also very, very easy to grow. I'd chop it down in winter and let all the new growth come up each spring. I like this plant so much that you could grow it on its own in a tub as a specimen plant and move it around to either be spectacular on its own or to show off other plants in your collection of pots on the patio. If you want to see how much I love grasses in my own garden, just take a look at this. This is Pennisetum villosum, wonderful hairy creature with these long, they're almost like elaborately formed caterpillars on the ends of the flower stalks. I grew these from seed, wonderful plants to grow from a little packet. Not bad recompense, eh? Behind it, a much larger plant. This is Stipa or Stipa gigantea, the golden oat, and you can see why it's so well named. This is a perennial, a tough one at that. It'll stay in the same spot for several years. Then you can dig it up with a bit of muscle, divide it and replant it. Any good, ordinary, well-drained soil and a sunny spot to make the most of those bright golden flowers. But here, a plant which I'm putting at number 1 because I think it's glorious and it's evergreen, it'll last all year round, is this beauty. Can you still see me? This is another Carex, another sedge, and this one is called Feather Falls. It makes an absolute waterfall of this creamy white and green striped foliage. Imagine that when it's raised up a bit, and the foliage itself completely covers this pot, which is a good 20 centimetres tall. I love this plant, not least because it's evergreen. It looks good like this all year round. Absolutely lovely. It has slender, almost cigar-coloured flower spikes that come out of the top of it, but it's, for me, grown on account of its glorious, huge, great eruptions of foliage. A plant for any half-decent soil, best if it doesn't dry out too much, and growing to a height of about a foot, maybe just a little bit more, 30 to 40 centimetres. Just one of a group of plants, the grasses, that no garden should be without. They're not just also-rans. These are plants that deserve their own spot in the limelight. When you're planting grasses, give them the best possible start in life. Work in a really good helping of peat-free multi-purpose compost. It'll help hang on to moisture, particularly in dry weather, and a good soaking in will give them that good start in life. There's a famous saying in gardening, now is the time and now is the time to plant spring flowering bulbs to give you a glorious show next year from February and March right through until May. Bulbs come in all shapes and sizes, but regardless of whether they're tulips, daffodils, crocuses or whatever, make sure they're fat and they're firm, and that means you'll get plenty of flowers out of them. This is a daffodil or a narcissus bulb. Narcissus is the botanical name for the daffodil, but we tend to call daffodils with lots of little flowers narcissi, and the big trumpet ones daffodils. That's a daffodil bulb. This is a tulip bulb, slightly different. They've both got flowers deep down inside there, ready to spring up thanks to them being grown well. And this is a crocus. It's actually a corm. That means it's a shrunken stem rather than the kind of bud come shoot that the others are. But the rules for them all are the same. Make sure they're as big as you can get them and that they're really firm with no signs of rotting. Then it's simply a matter of putting them in a decent growing situation and they are guaranteed, just about, to flower next spring. The easiest way to grow them, which you can do even if you haven't got a garden, is in a pot, and you'll be amazed at how many you can cram into a single container. Especially if it's a big one. First thing though, in the bottom, one drainage hole, just arrange some bits of broken flower pot or gravel or whatever over it. Now some people say, oh, you don't need crocks in the bottom, it's an outdated way. You do, because if the compost goes right down into that hole, worms get up through that hole and they clog the hole, and then you get a waterlogged pot, and bulbs do not like waterlogging. Next comes the compost. I'm using a peat-free multi-purpose mix, and I'm going to fill this pot half full, that's all, just halfway up. A bit. Even it out. It's a generous half, that, but I can bed my first layer in. First layer. Yes, this kind of planting has a lovely name. It's called lasagna planting because you plant in layers, and the reason we do that is to give us a longer display of flowering by using different types of bulbs. Now the first layer will be tulips, and I'm going to use a mixture here. It doesn't matter if they flower at slightly different times, so these are all scheduled to flower in April and May. This is National Velvet, a lovely sort of deep wine red. I'm going to space these out. I've only got 6 of these, but I'm going to be really generous with what I plant, so I'll space these out and put others in between. So there they are, they're spaced out. But I went last year to Arundel in Sussex to their tulip festival, which is sensational. And their containers were absolutely rammed with bulbs, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. You can grow just a few if you want, or if funds are a bit short. Otherwise, it's another one here called Bojangles. Go mad, pack them close together. It seems incredibly generous, but all I can say is when they come up and flower and you've got this enormous great bunch of tulips, coo, even are spectacular, and you think, oh, I wish I'd put more in like they did. Well, that's why I'm doing it. 24 seems extravagant. You ain't seen nothing yet. What I've used there is a mixture that I like, that complement one another. National Velvet with those plum-coloured, wine-coloured flowers, Bojangles, bit stripy and pink, and this one, Candy Apple Delight. Second layer, Daffs, Narcissi. This is a mixture of white ones of varying heights. It's called Snow Fusion. They're very imaginative plant names nowadays. So I'll tear the packet open, drop them in, and add to them another little one, Doll Baby. And again, I'm being as generous with these, another one, Replete. But you can see the general tone, white and salmon pink I'm going for in these daffodil layers. If you like them all jumbled up, different colours, do what suits you. But there we are. Now I've got to spread these out right the way across. Don't worry about, oh my goodness, how will the tulips get up? They'll get up. They want to live. I always say that about plants. They want to grow. It's just up to us not to get in the way. I like to think it's obvious, but I'll just drop it in anyway. Point upwards, roots downwards. The thing about planting them in good compost, it'll be enough nourishment in there for so many bulbs. And I'm not finished yet. Just tucking it down. Don't pat it. Never pat compost. You're not flattening it. You're just tucking it with your fingertips down among the bulbs so that there are no air pockets. And next up, the smallest of all, the crocuses. And I'm using a mixture here. Joan of Arc is white, golden yellow, I don't have to tell you what colour that is, and Prince Claus, which is white and purple. Just a jolly mixture, and these will be the first to flower in February, March. I get ridiculously excited at bulb planting time because it's looking forward, you know, the joy of the journey. It's better to travel, hopefully, they say, than to arrive. Well, here, I enjoy the travelling, hopefully, but when you get there, when these arrive, my goodness me, the pleasure is even greater. Just tucking these down a little bit, nestling them into the compost. Do make sure with these that you've got them the right way up, because sometimes it's difficult to tell. That's the bottom and that's the top. Sometimes you do have to look quite closely. No patting. If you're enjoying all the action on our gardening channel, why not subscribe? Join our community. So why are the tulips there, the daffs there and the crocuses there? Well, it's in reverse order of flowering. The crocuses flower first, up they'll come, bloom, fade. The daffs will then come up to hide their embarrassment and flower on the top. And as the daffs are fading, then the tulips have had time to come all the way up. And because the tulips are 16 to 20 inches tall, they'll cover up the mess that the daffodils are leaving. You see, there's a lot of thought gone into this. Another way I like to feature spring flowering bulbs is in my borders, particularly at the front of beds and borders. Dig a hole about 3 times as deep as the bulbs you're planting. I use dwarf miniature narcissi like this one, W.P. Milner. Now you can dot bulbs through your borders. I prefer to plant them in clumps. Here I'm using 9 of these bulbs, a good clump rather than just the singles or 2 or 3 together. It looks more generous and it's more impactful. Sit the bulbs in the bottom of the hole with their noses or shoots facing upwards. Space them apart so that they've got room just to grow over the years, these between 1 and 2 inches apart. And then infill and lightly firm the soil. That really is all there is to it. There is another way of planting bulbs, and it's called naturalising. That's what we call it when you plant them in grass and they come up and flower in spring. Then the foliage dies down as the grass is growing taller. Daffodils and narcissi I like to do in clumps, rather like those that I planted in the garden. But with tulips, I plant them singly through this area here, and they come up rather like a big wildflower meadow. And the thing to use is one of these, a bulb planter. Put your weight on it. Tulips, which I'm planting here, last longer if you can get them down a bit, so I'm doing the full depth of this planter, and the first core comes out. Good job, I had a good breakfast, didn't it? There we are, the first core comes out just like that when you're doing the second one, and on you go. Sometimes you hit a root and you really do have to give it a bit welly. You can see how much more effective and economical this is than using a spade to dig a hole for an individual bulb. If you want a clump, yeah, dig a larger hole and space them out. But when you're planting singly, as I do with these tulips through this meadow, this is such a quick and easy way, provided you've got a bit of weight. And the last core of your clutch of bulbs goes back to the first hole. Drop a bulb into each hole, and then it is a matter of putting back the divots and pressing them in. This is where you can use your foot. Last one in. And now I can look forward to a flower-filled spring. Waterlogging really is the only thing that bulbs don't like. Other than that, any decent soil, good bit of light, up they'll come. It's called the postponement of gratification. But boy, when it comes, it's so enjoyable. Gardening has changed my life, so let me show you how it can change yours. I'll be posting new videos every week, so subscribe and let's get gardening together.